So we've created our calculator, and let's say we want to add a second activity to our project, right? Which is not uncommon. It's pretty rare that an entire application would only be one single activity, right? We might want to have one that appears whenever the solution happens, or a help screen, or something else. Uh, and so most apps use many separate activities. So there's a couple of steps to making an activity, and as you probably have gathered, we have the XML file and the Kotlin file, right? And these two things are tied together. And so we need to actually pull in a new activity. The best way to do this is in your project window. So this window right here, we select app, the topmost level, this folder called app. Right click, new, and we say activity, and then we can choose our different defaults. And remember, in this class, we're mostly going to be using empty activity. So I'll pick empty activity. It's going to ask me for a name, so I'll call this main, let's say like second activity. We want to generate a layout file. We don't want to set a launcher activity. That's fine for the activity underscore second name. That's the package, Kotlin, all that stuff's fine. We'll hit finish. And you're going to see on this left-hand side, it's made a new .kt, a new Kotlin file, and it's also made a new activity file. So this activity file is just blank right now. I'll simply add some text in here, and we'll just say second screen, so I know I went to the right place. And make sure I add my constraints. I can just do auto constraints if I like. Okay, so let's go to our second activity, and our second activity looks much like our first, right? Or at least how our first did whenever we first jumped in here. So let's jump back into our main Kotlin file, and this is actually something I imported earlier. I'm going to just delete that for now. I'm going to hop down, and let's have it where whenever we press this add button, it's going to take us to the next activity. There's a couple of steps of linking activities together. So this is the most common thing, right, is that you would link one to the other. So whenever I hit this add button, take me to the second screen, right, to the second activity. So in my main activity Kotlin file, what I need to work with is something called intent. I need to create an intent, which basically means where am I sending data to? And we're going to have an intent of sending ourselves to this second screen. So the code for it is not too complicated. So what we need to do is we need to declare an intent by creating a value. I'm going to create a val called like where am I going, right? We can name this whatever we want, and we'll have it equal to intent, and then we need to feed it a bunch of things. So by default, this doesn't actually have, this needs to be imported, so let's go ahead and import it with just a simple option return and say import, and it should import the intent bundle up here. And let's go ahead and just click inside here and look at some of the options. So there's this action string, package, create context, action string, a bunch of different things. The parameter that we mostly want to use is basically just saying, where am I going? That's pretty much the parameter that we're always going to use. And it's a little tricky to write this. We're going to say the word this, which is saying what's the basis for this intent, and that's here. So this, and then we're going to tell it where to go. So we named this second activity, So we're going to write second activity, and then I need to do : class.java. So what we're saying here is, hey, my intent is to take this and send us to the second activity, to something called second activity, which is the name right here. And this class.java, we don't really need to worry about this for this class, but basically what this is saying is, hey, send us here. Okay, it's identifying this class, this Java class, which, you know, we're using Kotlin, but Java still comes up here. All right, so let's hit return, and now it's pretty easy. We just need to write a function that uses this value of where am I going, and that function is going to say start activity, and our intent is going to be where am I going. So here's my value for where am I going. Here's my start activity. Let's go ahead and run this and see if it works. Okay, here's my calculator. I put in some different values and I hit the plus, it should equal that and then take us to the next activity. and it did. Now we have no real way to get back other than this back button, which is important because basically that's built into Android, but we also probably want to add a back button with that same intent of going backwards to the main activity. So it's pretty simple. We just create a new activity by right-clicking up here and saying new activity and giving it an empty activity, and then we just need to create a value with a name that we like to use, and it's going to be an intent, and the intent is this, and then the name of our second activity that we're sending it to, : and then class.java, and then we need to actually run a function called startActivity. So that's the whole process for creating multiple activities in Android.